episode 2 of the Impodcast. Thanks, Channing, for joining me. So I know I've known you for a while now through Shame and Freitas, and I just wanted to get you on this episode just to talk about some things. I know you're a student of psychology with an interest in sexology and just talking about sexual health, sexual reproduction, human sexuality, and just certain topics that aren't really discussed. It's very taboo. People are very uncomfortable with it. And I know just from your research, your experience, you have a lot of great things, great insights, great knowledge on these topics. So I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So what interests you in sexology? Because like I can imagine like when you tell someone like, hey, I'm going to be a sexologist, like you get all these different reactions, or they don't understand it, or it's like, oh, she's a slut, or like this, or like you don't actually, like they're not looking at it from like, oh, she's intelligent on something. It's just like they don't get it. So like, how do you explain that as like a field of research that's going to be your career one day?
So I've always described it as the psyche as being sex, because your mind is sex, and without your ideals, your concepts, you really don't have anything to go off of. So you base sex upon what you've grown up around. And the way I describe it is I'm trying to do neuropsychology so I can do more so why we behave the way we do, and to what chemicals cause our behavior to do things, instead of just going off of behavior, because then I feel I won't be looked at as seriously. So I'm going that route. But the whole reason I started in sexology as a curriculum is because no one wants to talk about it. People are nervous. People see it as taboo, or people become uncomfortable when it's brought up. So especially when they ask, what are you studying, or what's your major? And I say sexology, they are taken aback. And it's a great topic starter. But I have gotten comments as like, oh, so are you a stripper? Or are you a surrogate? And I just have to explain, like, no, I'm just trying to help people through their traumas. I'm trying to help people understand their orientation. I'm trying to help people figure out who they are sexually and have them better enjoy a healthier sex life, as well as have partners where they can be respected and respect in a way that's able to be shared amongst everyone. So
you're trying to make people comfortable with the topic.
Yes.
And you're trying to bring these topics to life rather than just like, oh, you don't talk about it. Because I think something like you mentioned with people are like raised a certain way. So like you can be raised to really conservative parents, really Christian parents that say like, you're not going to have sex until marriage. And so this kid sees that, and then he comes from a community that like everyone's saying that, but no one's giving him like sexual education. So he has all these like sexual urges and feelings, but no one's like explained anything properly.
Yeah.
And then you see like a rapper talking about sex, like having sex with a bunch of women. So like that's in a little kid's mind of like what sex is, or like should having a lot of sex or waiting for sex. And so like people like they have all these influences of like what the right thing to do is with their body and like who they are, and so they don't really have like a person that talks to them, because it's uncomfortable for some people, like having a conversation with your mom about sex, like because you don't see your mom that way, like so it's parents. Like so you have this really weird like line of communication with certain people, like friends. And that's the thing too, it's like if you talk about sex, then like especially with guys, it's like, oh, like who's having more sex, or
what's
like
the notch on your
or like
belt?
who's with the hotter girl, like stuff that really doesn't matter, and like it doesn't help anyone like understand themselves, understand their own sexual energy. So I think it's good what you're doing, like bringing all this to light. So was that something like studying psychology and going into sexology as a major, was that something that you knew you wanted to do for a long time, or was it kind of recent?
It was recent, because I actually started off as a business major, and I finally realized that I should probably pursue sexology, because I'm considered hypersexual for a diagnosed term, and taking that into account, I wanted to turn it into something positive. So I started to just do research and try to see what I could do with my amount of passion for sex, and it turned into me finding sexology and becoming a sex therapist, and just reading more into books and trying to understand why I felt the way I felt, because with me it's constantly on my mind to the point where it can be considered a burden. So I had to balance between my studies, balance my relationships, balance a lot of things between staying out of my head, of seeing everything as sexual, like objects as sexual, every person as a sexual being that I could be sexual with. And so I began doing studies and trying to see how I can better my mind in a way that can be healthier, as well as help others, because I know I'm not the only one.
Right.
And coming to find how many different fetishes, how many different subgenres like BDSM, and how many just different ways a person can have sex without even physically touching another being. I wanted to just discover and go into more depth about everything that's out there. And so that I'd say that the whole reason of me being hypersexual is what got me started into the curriculum and wanting to study it so I could help people.
Cool.
But you're correct. You're absolutely correct with the sexual energy and how no one wants to talk about it, and how there are two extremes. So the extreme of you need to have sex with everything that's in sight, which is like music videos, rap songs, to you need to wait until marriage. So these huge, huge polar opposites on this giant spectrum that people don't understand yet, that they don't have a grasp of, and it's because no one's talking about it. And especially with children, I have a difficulty with parents saying there's a private area, like don't touch your private area. Like, children need to know it's a vulva, it's a vagina, or it's your penis, it's a phallic, it's your body part.
What it is.
Yes, and it shouldn't be something that you need to be afraid of, or that it's private and it should be secretive. It's something that you need to explore as a parent, showing their children that a woman has vulva and labia minora, labia majora, and a clitoris, and as a male, your penis, the corona, the shaft. Children, they need to know. They need to know about this so they don't grow up into a middle school or high school where it's just, who have you had sex with? Like, oh, she's hot. Can I get into her pants?
Right.
You know, it definitely needs to be based off of respect and this coming from a loving perspective. And without the education, everyone's just going to go blindly into figuring out themselves. And especially with relationships, like a mother and father, if their parents are divorced, they see that as, how is a relationship supposed to be? No one teaches us how to be in love. No one teaches us how to work on things, how to be communicative, and how to have a partner in which you can be completely vulnerable. So that's another aspect I want to teach as well, is relationships and multiple relationships, multiple lovers, polyamory.
Cool.
So,
You're kind of deprogramming people in a sense, because people have all this programming and things that they were taught, and you're trying to help someone understand it from their individual perspective. Because like you're saying with the private part thing, that's like, it's a kind of an illusion, because if like you take a baby, he doesn't really like look at himself as naked. It's just like his body. Yeah. But then you have to, when you say, no, you wear these clothes, now it's something to cover up. Now it's something to wonder, like, why would that person be looking at this part of my body? So you become afraid of it. And it's like the concept of nude beaches. People here in America think nude beaches are so weird. We have one of the best nude beaches here in San Diego at Black's Beach.
Black's Beach.
And people,
y'all need to go.
and people think it's so weird, but it's like you were born that way. Like if we just didn't wear any clothes, no one would think anything of it.
Yeah,
Or we could do the opposite. You could take a baby and cover their hands with like gloves or something. Like you don't show anyone your hands. That person will be 20 years old afraid to show people their hands because it's just psychological.
Yeah.
It's all like, oh, well, like everyone else wears gloves. We don't show our hands to people. So it would be weird to show your hand because it's just like what you were taught.
Yeah, societal and cultural standards and norms.
So it's like in a third world country, maybe they don't wear any clothes. Maybe they're nomadic people. They don't even look at it that way. They're not even like when you like glance at someone's like private parts, like they don't even. It's just like be looking at someone's eyes. They don't. And so
like, oh my god.
And you think that people think that's going to increase like sexual problems, but it decreases sexual problems. It decreases the rate of rape and like sexual abuse, because when it's not taught as like a thing, like the penis and the vagina is like a separate thing. It's just part of the body. It's just what it is, and people they overlook it. And here in America, we're so repressed sexually that we actually have more sexual problems because of that. Yeah. Because it's not talked about, or it's talked about in like a light that's not real. Like you're saying, the two extremes. It's like you have sex with everything possible, or you don't have sex at all until marriage, or you just stay celibate. So you have these two ends of the spectrum here, and those are like obviously extremes, but everyone has their own line for like what they think is okay sexually and not okay. But then they also have the cultural conditioning from what their parents said, what their priest said, what their friends are doing, the peer pressure. Yeah. And so a lot of times it's not like, what am I doing? What's my sexual energy? How do I feel about it?
How can I discover myself?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's really cool what you're doing because it like with anything, it's like you're putting yourself out there, and it's a hard thing to talk about with a lot of people because it's such a taboo subject, and people don't want to go into like their own sexual nature, their sexual energy. Not even just having sex, just like sitting in a room and being comfortable with your energy with another person. Like if someone like makes more money or has something, like just being comfortable with who you are in that group setting. Like, oh, this person's more attractive, this person's this, or I'm not in this person's league. Like just the sexual energy of just liking your presence, being comfortable, being in a chair and like leaning back, like not taking things so seriously. So it goes beyond sex. It just goes with like being comfortable, like you said, with your psyche and just like who you are as a person. So a lot of times when you're talking to people, I'm sure you get a lot of different questions about sexuality, but like what's a common thing that people bring up to you? Like
a lot of people ask me how to have better sex and how to attract more attractive partners or how to make themselves more attractive. And I've always responded as, if you want good sex, you need to be communicative. You need to talk about what you like. You also need to explore, because you're not going to know what you like if you don't try things out. So I've always mentioned try things once. Of course, follow it with consent. Don't just do things.
Right.
And play around, a lot of playing in order to know what you like. And to be comfortable, you have to be vulnerable. And to do that, you have to have a partner to be vulnerable with. So for me, one night stands I'm not big on, because sure, it's not my thing. I'm not knocking it, but how can you be vulnerable? How can you be your absolute self, your just raw self with a person you just met in the club, like an hour of spending time with them? And how are you able to discover what you like, and how are you to know how to please that person if you've just met them? So for me, one night stands isn't the best sex. So if you have a partner that you've known for a while and that you feel that you can be completely raw with, is when you can discover absolutely everything and know what you like and what you don't like, and your boundaries and what type of standards that you want to hold while you have sex. And for finding someone who's attractive or how you can be more attractive yourself, I tell them, don't even worry about it. Because why would you want to have someone that doesn't feel or think you're attractive in the first place? You need to find someone that you can be in absolute love with as just who you are. So again, bringing that back to vulnerability and being raw. Just finding someone that loves you for who you are, that doesn't want to change you or make you cut your hair a certain way or wear certain clothes or exercise.
You need to lose 5 pounds.
Yes. Yes. Don't do that. You need to find someone that you love for who they are, and you need to be loved for who you are. So that's always kind of what I've given as advice, and that's been the top questions, and how to have the best sex. Like, how can I always have the best sex? Well, there's no standard to follow. That's your standard. That's something that you need to discover. So of course you can read all these novels or books about the how-tos and the Cosmopolitan magazines. Like, no, don't.
Huffington Post.
Yeah, just follow what you feels right. You need to discover that on your own. And consent, 100%. Please talk about it. Please be sure that you know what you're going to do before doing it, and ask your partner if that's okay. And discover by yourself. Get toys. Use food. Use camera. Like whatever you want to do by yourself. Yes, and just explore. You know. Yeah,
and keeping open-minded with it. And I think like what you're saying about keeping the communication open. A lot of times, like if it's a husband and a wife, and she wants to communicate something, then there's the whole issue of like, oh, how's he going to take it? So that can cut communication too, because if she says like, oh, I like it this way, or we should try this, he might think like, oh, am I like not as big of a man or like so then he gets angry if you try to talk about it, because it's like you're like questioning his manhood, questioning his skill level, like, or like this guy does it this way, like you're not doing it this way, and so like he takes it personally, and then there's no communication at all. So no one like progresses or finds what they like, or like
it becomes stagnant. And I was just talking about this yesterday, is that how women and men, but mostly women right now, need to speak up in what they want sexually, because they feel that it's an inconvenience, that they're inconveniencing their lover if they say, hey, can I have it this way? Or can you please move your hand here? Or whatever. And same goes with men, because men are just as well as having difficulties with asking what they want as well.
Even more so, mostly.
Yeah, because they'll feel as though they're either being controlling, and women, they'll feel as though it's an inconvenience or will be offending, emasculating their man. So it's interesting. There definitely needs to be conversation, and it needs to be broad-minded. It needs to be an open space to where you can just throw it out there and be unapologetically yourself. Because without it, you're going to be very unhappy.
And that's the thing, too, with, like, expanding out there and being happy. It's like, okay, if I mention this fetish or idea or whatever, how's she going to take it, or how is he going to take it? So people just don't mention it because they don't know how they're going to be reacted to.
Yeah.
So they're like afraid of the outcome or like the rejection. So they don't say anything and they don't do anything, and then they never make any progress. And then they just think they're this weird person who has this like sick mind or something. And they think they're the only ones who think that way. And if you just talk to people, we're more alike than we are different.
Yes.
Like, what is weird? I mean, if you took a camera and took video and audio of someone's entire life, like, anyone's weird. So like, who's really weird at the end of the day? Like,
what is the standard of normal?
Yeah, because I mean, just because social media exists, someone posts a picture on vacation, that's not their life. Like, just this one picture of me smiling on vacation, and like there's a lot going on there, sexually, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Like, there's a lot going on with a person. And so sometimes you see a snapshot and you think that's just like what the person's life is. And so then like you get weird about your own stuff or your own place, and you think it's weird, so you don't communicate anything. Instead, when you communicated it, like, we're talking about sex right now, so it's like you communicate something that you want sexually, or like an idea you have sexually, you can look it up and you can talk to people, and it's like, it's not that weird. Like, the thing you think is weird, someone's doing way weirder shit.
Yes.
Because people are into some weird shit.
Yes.
So
an example, my sexology professor, a human sexuality professor, I love this woman. She's amazing. And she actually, her and another professor is what got me into this career in particular. But she said that she had two clients, one who enjoyed dressing up as a turkey and placing himself in the oven, and that's what worked for him. That just worked for him. And another was placing his penis in the refrigerator door. He enjoyed how it felt being between the refrigerator door. And the thing is, with fetishes, it doesn't matter what you do as long as it's consensual and you're not hurting anyone. Otherwise, go fly your freak flag.
Seriously.
And that's what she said too. So I loved this woman. I was like, yes, girl, preach. Like, do you? So exactly. People have fetishes that some people couldn't even comprehend if they were talked about.
Yeah.
And so don't feel weird. You can't feel weird, because if you have it bottled up, it becomes repressed. And then you do get these feelings of, oh, am I weird? Am I ever going to find a partner? Which those two gentlemen who had those fetishes did. Their partners are completely accepting of who they are.
Yeah.
So just lay it on the line and don't be afraid, because I'd much rather rejection, so I know to move on and figure out who would love me for who I am, than just like be stagnant in this relationship and just kind of guess and maybe this, maybe that. Like, no.
And it's only missionary because we can't talk about anything else.
Yes. Yeah, enjoy your sex life. Enjoy your life like you enjoy your sex life, like you enjoy your food, and different types of varieties, different types of sautéing or baking, or just try so many things,
different recipes, spices.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. I'm excited. I'm excited to just try to help people and get them to understand that there's a huge spectrum of love and types of love styles, and you shouldn't settle for sticking to one. Try everything first and then find out what's best for you. And I don't knock monogamy. I wholeheartedly respect it and love that love style, because it is possible. But also there's polyamory, there's asexuality, there's so many different types of love styles that some people don't even want to be categorized. They don't like being boxed. They just love to love. And so I feel just me getting the chance to show people that is what I'm here for. So we'll see.
I love it, Channing. And the thing, I'm glad you mentioned polyamory, because I definitely wanted to touch on this. I had an Uber driver a couple months ago, and he's from Somalia. And I was talking to him, and he has 3 wives back at home. And it was cool to just like hear his story and just talking about his family back at home. And it's not weird over there to have 3 wives or multiple wives. It's just part of their culture. You know, a guy has multiple wives and he takes care of them, and it's not seen as weird. Over here, you're just like, they like put you in jail or something. It's like so weird. And so I was having this conversation with a coworker of mine. I mentioned to her, I'm just like, like, what if I had 3 wives and she was like telling me like I can't do that? Like that just makes me like bad. And I'm like, well, why is he a good guy for having 3 wives and why am I a bad guy? Who's to say I can't have 3 wives? What if I just want 3 wives? What if they consent to it? What if I make $1 million a year and I take care of all of them? Like what's the bad part? Because we're in America and they tell you that like you can only marry one person. Like I'm being kind of funny with it with her, but she was like mad at me for
She's
like
stop.
Yeah, for saying that I could have 3 wives. Like I'm the bad guy, but this guy from Somalia, she's like, oh, that's his culture. I'm like, well, what if that's my culture? And then she's like, well, no, that's part of his culture. Like, okay, so he was raised in a certain place that said that was okay, therefore it's okay. I was raised here, so I have to just follow what someone says. What if I have racist parents? Do I have to grow up racist, or can I just not be racist? Can I like use my mind to think of different things?
Choices.
And so, yeah, I'm kind of mind fucking her a little bit. I'm having fun with it, playing devil's advocate, kind of, clowning around. But at the same time, I'm trying to reveal an underlying truth there where it's like, why is it okay for him to have 3 wives and why would that not be okay for me? Or a girl with 3 husbands or whatever. Like why is a big part of what we think is right and wrong, like where we were brought up? Like something can be legal, doesn't make it right. Something can be illegal, doesn't really mean it's hurting anybody. Weed's illegal in a lot of different states. I don't really see anything wrong with someone smoking weed. But I mean, it's legal to drink, but people don't always act the best when they're drinking. You can do some bad things when you're drunk. And so it's like, why, just because something's legal or illegal or like this country says or this religion says, and then people get that base of like what reality is. So going back to the polyamory thing, it like in certain parts of the world, that's just how they live. It's just part of it. And certain parts of the world, kids are having other kids at like 14 years old because like you're sexually able to at that age. But here it's like, it's just seen differently. It, like even the age of consent being 18, if we just made that 17, people would think that would just be the age of what it is. So if you see a 20-year-old with a 17-year-old, it's like, oh, like he's raping her. But it's like they're 3 years apart. They're kind of in the similar spot. If it's consensual, like just because the law says 18, what if the law said 16? What if the law said 21? Then you would look at someone 19 being taken advantage of. See, it's like there's no black and white. There's a lot of gray area here. So I'm interested with that. You studying this, and congratulations on your bachelor's in psychology. That's really cool. And
Still a long way to go.
Talk a little bit about what you want to do with a master's and a PhD, and what you want to do with this on a bigger scope.
Yes. So for me, I would love to, and I'm going to have a lot of work to do, but I'm hoping with the help of others I can accomplish this. So when I get my PhD, what I want to do is implement a curriculum within elementary school all the way through high school as a requirement for each grade level to in order to graduate, that they need to learn about human sexuality. And for elementary students in particular, they wouldn't be learning the act of sex necessarily, but more so how to speak out against rape and molestation that's occurring within the home. A lot of statistics say that type of behavior happens within family members. And how is a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old supposed to voice out that they're being abused sexually? So if I can find a way to have parents not strangle me, but instead allow this teaching so that students can speak up and protect themselves and possibly notice signs of their peers and be able to pull them out from something dangerous, then that would be amazing, especially for children that are so young, because they can't protect themselves and they have no idea what's happening to them if there is some sort of molestation going on at home. Just the fact that their auntie or their mother or father love them a lot, so maybe that's why they're touching me in this way, until they grow up and realize, oh my goodness, my entire childhood I was being sexually abused and molested. I was taken advantage of, and now I have this trauma that's going to lead into adulthood and affect my relationships, affect my own being, and just be this terrible cyclical mind game that they're not going to be able to get over. So I'm hoping to do that in order to help sooner and to get them into therapy to be able to rehabilitate them. And for middle school and high school, as the grade progresses, it'll become more in-depth of human sexuality. So more in-depth anatomy, more in-depth biology, more in-depth of sex positions, of knowing your body, of how to come, how to orgasm, how to be comfortable in your skin, how to have relationships, how to do self-love practices, not necessarily masturbation, but just how to be positive and how to give yourself positive affirmations so you have a positive outlook on your body and who you are as a person, so you can then be comfortable as an individual to then have a relationship, to better have a healthier relationship. Because a lot of us go into relationships, especially high school. It's the time of dating. It's the time of going to prom. It's the time of doing fun stuff with the opposite sex or same sex. And you just go into it not really knowing what you're going to do. Like, when am I supposed to make out with this person? How do I make out with this person? Do I have sex with this person now? Is it because we've been with each other for 2 days? Like, what do they do? Children don't know. We don't know. No one's taught us to be in a relationship. So I want to have those types of courses of just how to be human, how to have basic relationship skills, and how to have sex safely, and to teach about consent, and to teach about fetishes, and to let people know that they don't necessarily have something weird, and that it's a fetish that can be dealt with and enjoyed, and not have a disorder create or come about from it because of an anxiety or because of some sort of stigma that they feel they may receive if they express themselves in that way. And just teach about love and respect, and to be mindful, and to be conscientious of your partner as well as yourself, and to just have fun, and to not get in your head to feel that there's this agenda that you need to have ready when you have sex with someone, that there doesn't need to be an end goal of orgasm, that there just needs to be this mindful, love-filled interaction with another human being. And I actually was talking about yesterday with my girlfriends about how close people get to each other. And the only time two people can really get like face to face is when you're either having sex or getting in a fight or sleeping with someone, sleeping next to someone. Otherwise, we're pretty good at distance. We don't want to get too close to each other. And why is that? Why do we have this space? Why do we have this uncomfortability, this discomfort of not wanting to get close to each other? So I just want to teach that be loving and touch your friends, touch your parents, not sexually, but just be there and massage them, show them that you're loving them, that human touch is so important to us. And a lot of us neglect that. A lot of us are sticking to electronics and doing long distance stuff and not even picking up the phone anymore to hear your partner's voice, your friend's voice. So just teaching people how to be human again and to not be uncomfortable when you're sitting really close to your best friend or happen to want to brush her hair or do a face massage. Not because, again, not everything has to be sexual. It's just about sensuality and showing compassion and love. So I'm hoping to teach the world that. But
I think that's an awesome goal.
Yeah.
I can definitely see you doing that, getting that into the curriculum of schools. It's so needed, and there's so much that we learn that's not real information. It'd be cool to have like real information that someone could apply to their life. It's good for everyone. Everyone's a sexual being, so it'd be good to have a course like that, or just like you said, someone they can talk to. Not everyone has that outlet of someone they can talk to, and there's a lot going on. There's the phones, the electronics, social media. A kid might be 10 years old and he's out hiking in the woods with his friend. They come across like a Playboy magazine, and so that's another form of sex, but like it's not real. It's like all airbrushed. It's like someone else, like a stranger on a page, and it's like meant for, you know what I mean? It's not like a natural, just like meeting a woman in person. And so this kid starts developing this idea of what sex is. And so say he sees that Playboy magazine, and then his parents find out. Now his parents are like mad that he looked at it. So now he's like feeling, oh shit, I shouldn't be
guilty,
looking. So it's like there's
shameful.
all this weird shit going on. There's that, and then the electronics, and then like for like us, we're with a modeling agency here in San Diego, and I know like people take that differently, you know. So like some people like, oh, this person's like more attractive than me, or they're advancing in life at something, or I wish I looked like that, or like, and so
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And so they already have all this stuff going on, and then someone they know personally just like landed a modeling job, or like this person like has a hot wife, or this, and so there's all this weird psychological like I'm not stacking up, or like
it's very physical.
Like I'm not one of the pretty people, or not one of the sexual people, and so people are just very confused. No matter, it's just like they're trying to make sense of their own situation, and sometimes they don't understand like the other person's situation. And so I think going back to what you're saying about being close, people, they have a hard time with eye contact. They have a hard time being close because they don't really know themselves. Because when you don't know yourself, everything confuses you. Like you don't know everyone else's motives. You don't know other people's intentions. You don't know like why this person has this, or why they're making this money, or like why I'm not getting girls or getting these men. You know, people have all this like weird stuff in their head of like how they feel they should be doing, but there's not a lot of like individual soul searching, which I think your work does a lot to help people with.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, and it will. I mean, you're just getting started. You're just scratching the surface on what you're going to become. I think this is great to do, and it's like the road less traveled by is something you're doing. Well, everyone knows that sex is there. It's like a huge part of our life. Like the reason that we're sitting here is because of sex. Like the reason anything exists is because of sex. But it's like the one thing you don't talk about, like that, and like religion and money and politics. We don't talk about those topics, but it's like super important topics. Let's talk about Netflix. Let's talk about like stuff that's like cool and fun, but it doesn't really matter. So people fill their lives with all this like kind of meaningless shit, and then they just don't know themselves sexually or spiritually or anything.
It becomes insatiable, especially when you don't know yourself, so you try to fill that void. It's absolutely insatiable, and it becomes another terrible cycle of just trying to fill that void. And speaking of Netflix, I had watched, there's amazing documentaries on Netflix that are coming out, especially in regard to sex. And I'm sure plenty of people know about the Real doll that's here in San Marcos, the warehouse that's creating the sex bots. Have you seen that, the documentary?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yes, so that's another thing where it needs to be balanced, because I get that some people have terrible social anxiety and need a partnership, but at the same time, we're just going to seclude ourselves even more into technology, like AI technology, sex bots that can respond to you, that can blink, that can move their lips, that can whatever you need. Yes, and the way that some materials are being produced, it's very human-like. Like breasts jiggle, butts can jiggle. It's just very interesting, and there needs to be a balance. There needs to be an extent to where we need to stop and say we need this human connection. We need to continue to touch each other. We need to be sensual. We need to be compassionate. Because, oh my goodness, if AI technologies come in, who knows what's going to happen? That's
especially when it starts invading the bedroom.
Yes.
Like, it's one thing to have a phone where you can call someone, makes things more convenient, but we're talking about the realm of, like, having a sex bot that's not a human being. I mean, that's another level.
Yeah.
You know, that's not something, like you said, like, yeah, some people do have social anxiety, and it might help them to, like, have, like, a sex bot or something, but it's, like, you need to get out there and, like, talk to a girl.
Yes.
Go say hi to a girl. Like be comfortable about it. Don't think she's out of your league. Don't think, just go talk, get the first step down. Because like everyone has their own, like, I guess, level of comfortability with certain traits and attributes, but I don't even like looking at it that way. Like, I don't see anything wrong with someone being a virgin at 30. I don't see anything wrong with someone sleeping around at 18. Like I don't see that alone as something that's wrong. It's all context. And so like if someone's, like you said, social anxiety, and they want to buy this sex bot or something, and it's gonna help them out, and they're gonna get off with like a robot essentially. It's like dude, get off your fucking ass and go talk to a girl.
Yes.
Like go look a girl in the eyes. Like ask her out, and if she says no, go ask another girl out.
Don't be afraid of rejection.
Not everyone's gonna like you. You can be the best guy in the world, best girl in the world, whatever that even means. Someone's not going to like you, or someone's going to be put off by something about you. Like you're not going to please everybody. That's something that people really have to get over. It's like you're going to get rejected. Life is rejection. You're not going to get every job. You're not going to get every girl. You're not going to get someone's going to have something more of that than you have, or they're farther along with this than you are. So like, are you going to do that with 7 billion people? Just like I don't stack up here, and just like you just got to get off your ass and go do it and talk to people. And if you don't understand someone or don't understand them sexually, ask them about it. And it's so hard for people to do that, or they'll sit there their whole life not understanding somebody, but they won't ask the person. I don't understand that person. That person's like confusing. They're weird.
Did you go talk to them?
Yeah. Did you talk to them? No. Did you ask them about anything about their life? No. Do you know anything about them other than your perception at this one point in time?
Yeah, you're guessing.
Yeah.
And with that, with the sex bot, I think there needs to be a purchase of therapy as well, like a certain amount of times you see a therapist, so you can work on your anxiety with the sex bot, but as well do your issues through a sex therapist who can help guide you, so you can eventually place the sex bot away and go have some communication and some human interaction. And I brought up the sex bots for men is because there are sex bots for women. However, when I went onto the website, you had to customize that doll. But for men, there was like a plethora of already different styles, different body shapes, types, hair, eyes.
That's crazy.
So yes, they're out there, and it's incredibly interesting because it can help people, but like I said, there needs to be a balance. And how you mentioned that it all really does boil down to rejection and being fearful of what another person may think. And if you lack the skills of being emotionally intelligent, it's going to be 10 times worse, because if you don't know how you're feeling, you're not going to be able to explain to another person how you're feeling.
Yeah.
So it just buries you in a deeper hole, and you're more anxious. And there just definitely needs to be more courses on how to be human.
So when you're talking to someone about this, or if someone reaches out to you with a question, or if you're just talking face to face, how do you make them more comfortable? What's a technique that you have to make them more comfortable to open up to you? Is there something specific you do, or do you just kind of be yourself? Or
I'm definitely just myself. I allow them to talk, and I also have noticed that when I mention my studies, they open up, and I feel that they feel comfortable because they may feel that I know quite a bit already, which I may not have even said anything to them yet. I'm just saying, hey, I'm studying sexology, and it's a huge passion of mine. And all of a sudden they have a slew of questions, which I love. I absolutely love that I can be that wall that they can just throw questions to, and I can help with whatever I can. And I always tell them, like, look, I'm not certified yet, and I'm not a doctor yet, so please take this as all opinions. I can't medically help you. I can just tell you from a perspective of my experience and what I've learned thus far, and be a friend. And so I think they just allow themselves to open up, and I hold that space for them. I allow them to be vulnerable. I allow them to just tell me their relationship issues or their fetishes or ideas that they have that they're not sure how to go about. And I say based off of experience, because I feel that I've done quite a bit of experimenting and have done a lot of research and looking for things that I feel like I needed to experience, because I feel like if I don't do something, how can I help another person if I haven't experienced it myself?
Right.
And of course, that's to an extent. I mean, there's abuse and stuff that I may never experience. So I still want to help people though with that issue. So I definitely need so much more education in that aspect. But just being myself, absolutely, just being myself and being silly, because not everything has to be so serious. Like,
yeah.
have fun with it. Talk about it. Like, what size are you? Are you circumcised? Like, how are you doing today? Did you have sex last night? Just being fun and allowing that person to just know, okay, I don't need to be serious. I don't have to have this perfect sex life. I don't need to portray a certain image. I could just be me, and it's worked thus far. So it's good. I'm
That's
happy,
cool.
you know?
You're breaking that wall naturally just by
Yeah.
being yourself and your personality. And on top of your research, people feel comfortable reaching out to you because
Yeah.
it's something that you study, you put a lot of time into. So people trust your opinion and they open up to you, and which is good because it doesn't really matter who specifically it is. Like we were saying with the lines of communication, some people, they can't talk about certain things with their family or their friends or their girlfriend or boyfriend even. But maybe here you come along and you're somebody to talk to. You don't have to have a relationship with the person, but you can be that open voice for them.
Yeah.
You know, because some people, we naturally think that like when we have an issue or something, you go to the people you're closest to. So like your family, your friends, like the people in your world, that's just who you go to for advice. But that's not always the best person for what you're specifically trying to do, because then there's bias that they have about you when you're getting that feedback.
Exactly.
It's like when people go to a therapist, they go to a stranger because they're not trying to hear any bullshit. They don't want to hear like their family's like bias of who they think they are. They want like a non-biased third party to just tell it for what it is.
Yeah.
Because like when you go to someone you know and they have that bias of like what they think the situation is and what's going on, but someone that you don't know, sometimes they can look at it and they just talk to you like a human being, you know, not their bias of how they think you should be. Or
Yeah, they don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Some people can really sugarcoat things, or it can be an issue as to not telling the truth. Or being embarrassed, like, oh my gosh, you do that? Like, honey, what? Like, as a mother to a daughter, which I also want to do classes for too. I want to do classes for adults, especially those who have children, to just talk to your child. Don't be embarrassed about sex, especially if you're the parent, because you're that guidance system. Because if they're not learning from you, they're going to learn from their friends.
Yeah.
And their friends have this misguided interpretation of what sex is and what sex should be in the media. So parents need to openly, non-judgmentally be just this human being to where you can tell your child everything and not feel like, oh, my child might have sex more if she figures out or he figures out that this is how you do it, or it feels good, and you're sharing this intimate act with someone else. And the statistics show too, if you talk to your child about sex, it doesn't increase their likelihood of doing it. It doesn't increase their risky sexual behaviors. It doesn't increase any of that. It just increases awareness and knowledge. So I would like to do that too with parents.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's like, going off what you were saying, it's like the typical like father that doesn't want his daughter to ever be with another guy. So he's just super closed off, never talks to his daughter about sex, never is open with her. And a lot of times that's like the craziest girl in the group because she's never like had any like real like talk with her. Like her dad doesn't talk about it, or like, I'm going to kick that guy's ass if you're around my daughter. Like he's just very like weird about like who he thinks his daughter should be, or like he doesn't recognize that like that's like a sexual person to other people. She's not just like your daughter. Like, so he just doesn't have the conversation, or then sends her to a Catholic school. I went to a Catholic high school, and you know, like like humans are humans. It doesn't really matter whether it's a Catholic high school or public high school. But a lot of times those religious schools, like parents put their kids there and they don't like tell them about real shit, or it's like, I'm trying to keep my daughter away from guys, or keep my son away from girls. And so that person, like, they don't have any like real knowledge or real like father figure or mother figure, just like someone to talk to them about real shit. So like you said, they find out with their friends, other misguided people, or they go crazy. They're never talked to about anything sexual. So once they get out into the world, they just go crazy with sex, and they just don't really know what they're doing.
You're like, what are you doing? Just stop.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's not that many books. I brought some books, but I feel, because this is like a Barnes & Noble kind of a stack, or a Amazon stack. I mean, at my university, there's so many books that you can look at for sexuality, just to learn.
What do you got here?
So I have here, I wanted to show this book. It's called Bordello Nights, and it's about a whorehouse in Paris. And I particularly love this book, just any book from outside of the westernized culture, because it shows so many different types of things, like young women having sex with older men, or it shows enlarged clitorises, and it even has transgenders having sex, and they're just very open and educative about what's going on, and it's absolutely uninhibited. So there's this book, and then I brought this book, which is the Kosher Sutra, and it just kind of talks about how to reignite the fire within a sexless marriage, or relationship, long-term relationship. You don't have to be married. And I particularly focus on polyamory is what I'm interested in. And I have two good books, at least, from Christopher Ryan and his partner, called Sex at Dawn. And it talks about just how to be, well, that book doesn't talk about it, but it talks about more so theories as to why we're not monogamous, and it talks about anatomy and how certain body parts may show that we have polyamorous behaviors. And then The Ethical Slut is about being polyamorous, and it's a practical guide to just have a healthy morals and values while you are with multiple people. But I brought these up because there is no education, and so you just have kids running around misguided without proper understanding of sex. And I would recommend to everyone to just search Google, search Amazon, search anything and everything about sex, whether it be polyamory, whether it be fetishes. Just read, try to understand things. And this book in particular is about She Comes First. So about the female orgasm and how to properly love a woman, and how to just take your time and be mindful and have long sex. Have a good 1.5 to 2 hour sex instead of this 10 minutes. Okay, we got to go.
Oh, I got off. We're good.
Yeah. And that's terrible, because you're pretty much, you're releasing a sexual urge, which sure is fine, but also you're purging yourself of it. So once that act is done, once you've purged, you're like, all right, let's do something else. Instead of thoroughly enjoying it, hold off your orgasm for 4 days. Just be sensual for that time, and be immersed in your partner or partners, and really enjoy it. Don't purge yourself of this feeling. Hold it tight and
That's
enjoy
so true. It's just even with guys too, like with masturbation, like if you go a long time without masturbating, there are a lot of benefits. I don't know if you've heard of NoFap, like the movement.
NoFap, yeah.
But it's just like if you masturbate every day versus like waiting off, like you do feel more energy. You do feel like more awareness of things rather than just like, letting loose every night or like what some dudes it's like multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I don't really see a problem with masturbating every day or not masturbating at all.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to the context. I mean, if you can't do anything but masturbate, like you come home and you have to go jack off, that's a problem. Like you can't like go out with friends because like you'd rather sit and watch porn. Yeah. That's kind of a problem. But like if you're just like before you go to sleep at night, whatever, and it's not affecting other parts of your life, because I think that's what it comes down to when we're talking about sex. Is like you said, as long as it's not affecting someone else, if you're not hurting someone else, how bad can it really be? So you really have to look at like how it's affecting you. Like with anything, even drugs, like you can know someone that they can smoke weed and they'll be lazy and they'll never do any of their goals. Yeah. Someone can do some hardcore shit and go to work the next day perfectly fine. So it's like you got to know how things are affecting you. You got to know that like something's going to affect you differently than the next guy or the next girl. So it's like that self-awareness. But
being mindful.
Yeah, and these are like really cool books that you brought here, and just the sharing perspectives and like getting someone else's perspective is a huge thing. Not even just with a book, but just talking to people and just like getting like you might see someone who hasn't wrote a book. You don't see them as an author, but you'd like, oh, like what could they teach me? But like anyone's an author. We're all authors of our own story.
Yeah.
Like what? Like it doesn't make like someone on TV. It doesn't make them like a better person because they're like a movie star or they have followers or like. Yeah. But people think it's like, oh, I should listen to this person because like other people listen. But it's like just a person. It's a TV screen. It's like it's an illusion. Like if I had 1 million followers, the podcast would blow up because people are like, oh, like what is this? But if it's just starting, they're like, oh, what is that?
It's total different perspective and respect. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
You gotta hear out the little guys because we could bring big things.
Absolutely. There's because it's all how you look at it. Because like even with these books talking about sexual education, there's a point where the author didn't write them. Like there was a point where they didn't exist because the author hadn't wrote it yet. So does that mean the author's not credible at that point in their life? Like say if they were 15 telling someone, I want to be an author one day. They're like, oh, well, that's not really realistic. You should look into like a real job. Else. Yeah, like you should like do it like some stupid office work or something. That's what a real job is. Yes. And so like you say like I want to be an author and it's just so like out of the norm that people don't know how to like they don't know how to react to it. So say this person had this book on like sexual health and they had this idea for it and they were going to write it. So the person sees like, oh, they haven't wrote it yet, so they don't understand it. But now that it's in book form and other people buy it, now the person's credible. Now they have something credible to say. Like who's to say this podcast isn't good just because it's starting? Why would other people agreeing it's good make it good? So I think you can learn something from everyone. Never count someone out. Never think that someone can't go on to do something amazing. Yeah. And I think it's because
of their size.
Yeah, or like where they're currently at. And I think we do that. We categorize people. So like we see our own family through our own eyes. Like they're my family, or like that's my girlfriend, that's my classmate from school. You go to the store, it's like that person is like the grocery store clerk who put food in my bags. And so you don't see that person as anything else because that's the snapshot of what you see that person at that one point in time. Yeah. So it creates that communication barrier too with like what could they teach me, or like that person has money, he clearly knows what he's talking about. This poor person, what could they ever show me? You know, so it's the same thing back to the sex. It's like thinking that someone has the answer because of a certain credential, and then someone doesn't have the answer because they don't have that credential yet.
Yeah. And I still, just because I am studying this and I am pursuing a degree, I don't have all the answers. And it doesn't mean I'm a sex goddess. It doesn't mean that I have a perfect relationship. I'm still human. You know, I'm just using tools to better my path and to better my relationships and to better help others do that. So again, yes, just because you have credentials or you have a certain background within whatever doesn't mean you're above a person who may actually have more answers than you, because their own way, their path brought them to different sources. Yeah. So if we work together, absolutely. And allowing people to grow from wherever they're starting. And I put this book on the top because this is the only book in regard to living a polyamorous lifestyle. There are, I believe, 2 others, but this is considered the Bible. It's the ethical slut. And it's hopefully I get it right one day, and based upon my experiences and studies this time, because this book, from what I've read in it, don't really include studies like psychological studies or how being polyamorous can affect your mental health, or what exactly can it do if you're polyamorous, like as a human being. So I would love to, once I get my PhD, do those types of studies so I can then include them. There are studies that I would love to share with you. I'm not sure if you can attach links and then people could read them, but
For sure.
I'll share studies that have been conducted on polyamory, and to the extent of how it explains how much more of an empath you need to be, and how much more patience you need to have, and how much more of an understanding, your better communication skills that you need to have, and having this cognition to be able to handle multiple people within a loving relationship, because a lot of time goes into everyone, and a lot of check-ins, a lot of understanding of, is everything okay? Do you like what's going on? Do you have boundaries? Do you feel safe? Do you feel included? And it's incredible, because it's definitely putting you out of your bubble of the whole monogamy thing, that there's only 2 that can exist within a love style, and putting you into this idea that you need to love more than one person, and that if that's your style, because again, this isn't for everyone. This is something that someone can follow if they're interested in, if it appeals to them.
Right.
So, but it's a beautiful love style, and I've got into it by I suppose accident, but I don't even know how I've gotten into it. I just know that I love a lot of people. I love people, and I love building relationships, whether it be sexual or not, because it can be absolutely emotional based. If you're polyamorous, it doesn't always have to be sexual. And just creating connections and being compassionate with each person that I meet. And I try to tell people, look, just because you have the standard of not wanting to love another person because you feel you need to save that for your monogamous partner, you should treat your friends with just as much compassion as you treat your partner. Like, why is there a hierarchy? Why do you feel that there needs to be this this categorical love to where you feel one person deserves way more than the other? You're a human being, and each human being should be loved with just as much as the next. You shouldn't be categorized in a numerical way. Like, this is my first person and I love them so much more. Oh, and this is Becky. She's cool. She's my best friend. But I don't really love her as much as I love my boyfriend or girlfriend, you know?
Yeah, the hierarchy thing.
Yeah. So for me, I couldn't understand that. And I respect it, because I don't want to change people like, this is how you need to be. I just want other people to know, even if you're in a monogamous relationship, you should still love your friends and other people as you love your partner. And it doesn't mean you need to have sex with them. But if you do have sex with your friends, like, okay, it's way better than a one-night stand at a club after being inebriated or some sort of intoxication, love bang out for the night, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I hope to teach people about that as well, and just bring it out.
What's that like, bringing up polyamory, especially here in America? Like, 'cause I can imagine you not getting the most positive reactions to that, because it's just so ingrained. Like, monogamy is just what we do here.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna get married to one woman or one man, and white picket fence, have 2 or 4 kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like this very structured way of what life is gonna be. So when you come along, you bring up polyamory, not just even in discussion or even just like with other people, or like in a relationship, like telling a guy like, hey, like, I'm interested in polyamory. Like, I'm sure that's not always met with an understanding. So like, how do you navigate through that?
Well, thus far, I haven't had any negative reactions in person or social media wise, but it's probably because I'm still considered small, so I don't have just a bunch of people seeing my content, because I haven't had any rude comments yet. I've had people just be curious, which I'm incredibly grateful of, because I'd much prefer curiosity than be met with anger or hatred or some sort of disgust. And so thankfully, it's always just been questions or just trying to understand my perspective, and I try my best to explain it. And I'm upfront, because again, I don't want to waste anyone's time. So even if you're not interested in me, I say, hey, I'm Channing. This is my study. And typically that leads into like, wow, why are you studying that? And I say, well, I'm polyamorous and I'm pansexual. So meaning gender or sex or look doesn't matter to me. If I love you, I love you. I love you for who you are, not what you look like. I love you for your kind-heartedness. I respect you for I just, if you're a good person, I'll most likely really enjoy your company and have so much compassion for you. So that's typically how it leads into it. I'm just really honest. Like I'm polyamorous, and they say, well, what is that? And I explain to them, well, I have a lover of 7 years and I have a girlfriend of 2 months. And again, questions just roll out and they just want to understand me and where I'm coming from or how I got started in it and what polyamory means, because polyamory, it's not necessarily marriage-based. So there's polygamy and there's polyandry, which typically are ritualistic, which involve religion and marriage. So that's the 1 man, 3 wives, or the 1 woman, 4 husbands. And so for polyamory, it's just loving. It's a love style, and it's being compassionate. And if you get married, cool, but it typically doesn't entail marriage. And it's also on a huge spectrum. Like there are some rules that couples have for specific behavior boundaries. And for me in particular, I don't have behavioral boundaries. I have a you need to be honest boundary and live your life. Like enjoy who you are. Who am I to keep you from experiencing another being that you may find interest in or that you may find a connection with. And I don't own you. I love you, but it doesn't mean you're mine. You're not my property. And everyone's tested. Typically in this community, we're very safe in that because we have more partners, we get tested more often, which is there's more testing than monogamous couples because you think your partner is being honest with you. You feel that you're safe because you're monogamous, but there are some affairs. There are some people who do things behind other people's backs, and it may be because they don't know how to speak up and want their needs to be met, so they go off and do what they need to do. But again, some couples last forever, and there is no affair. But polyamorous types of people typically get tested much more often than those who are monogamous. And it's an open floor. Like there is nothing off limits. And that's what I really enjoy about this community and this love style is that you aren't ashamed or you're not being put down because of your needs. You're welcomed and you're seen as a human being with needs that should be met. If there's someone out there that's super willing to do what you want, like that's beautiful. Yeah. You're not being inhibited. You're not feeling guilty. You're not feeling a terrible feeling in your gut because of what you may need, but other people think are weird. And it's taken 2 years. So me even explaining this on this podcast, people will probably freak out because this is such a simple conversation that I've had to learn over 2 years and had to read books and had to speak to other polyamorous couples and meet other beings with the same type of concepts or ideals that they want to live out. So it's fun, and I just hope to just tell it in a way that doesn't offend anyone, because I'm learning how to do that too. Is I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to say that this style is better than the next style, because there's asexuality. There's some people who are going to watch this and be like, well, I don't need any sex. Like, how come I'm not being recognized? How come my love style, which is still, I'd say, a love style because you love yourself and you're compassionate with people, you're just not sexual. You know, you may be emotionally involved, but not physically. So I'm hoping that I can just say it in a way where it's incredibly respectful, because I have nothing but compassion for everyone. And I just want to show different ways that you can love, because there are so many different ways. Even within polyamory, like I said, there's a huge spectrum. And it's beautiful that I can do this.
It's really cool. And I think something that you said about how there's no one set way that is like the way to do. And I think it comes back to like we were talking about with communication. If you are polyamorous or you're interested in polyamory, like you were saying with certain rules, certain couples have rules. Like maybe they have if you have sex with another person, like wear a condom, or tell me when you're gonna hook up with some other person. Don't do it behind my back. Or like they limit like, okay, we're only gonna have like one other partner than just us two, or like is whatever boundaries they set, as long as they're on the same page. It starts to crumble when it's like the monogamous relationship and then this person cheats or this person has an affair. Then you're breaking the trust. So a lot of times with the polyamory, it can work if there's that line of communication. But if you set those boundaries, follow those boundaries. Don't set the boundaries and then cheat on it.
Exactly.
And then, so it's like not even just polyamory, but monogamy or just people talking and dealing in life in general. It's like you set the boundaries, you're both on the same page, and then this person does some like out of pocket stuff that like breaks the trust. So that can happen in any type of relationship.
Exactly.
So as long as you have that communication where you're on the same page, I think it's fair game to express yourself differently sexually and you try different things.
And the funny thing is polyamory is everything that monogamy is. It's all about respect. It's about talking about your emotions. It's about understanding, about having patience with your lovers. It's everything monogamy is. It's just more people that are involved. So there's nothing more or like something crazy that you need to do. It's just being, if anything, it's you learn how to better communicate because you're forced to. Because if you get stuck to where you can't emote or explain your feelings, then that's when an issue arises. But as soon as you get past that and realize, okay, I'm not going to be rejected by my partners, I'm not going to lose them because they want to understand me and they're here for me, you grow in that way. You become more comfortable knowing that people are willing to listen and to stay, and you have better communicative skills because you know, like, this is what I need to say in order to get across a certain point so I could feel better so we then can move on with this, what we're doing with our relationship. And because it's definitely been an experience. Like it's so much fun to just learn every day how to better express myself, how to better listen, how to better just live happier, and do it with love. I'm such a hippie. No, I'm not really a hippie, but I just do it with love, okay?
Yeah, love's important.
Yeah.
And there's different types of love. Like you can love your friend. You can be a straight person that loves your guy friend. And it's just like, but people sometimes get weird about that. It's just or like a guy, like I had a guy once tell me, because I'm with male modeling, he couldn't see it. Like when I was telling him my goal for doing it, he didn't like understand what I was doing, taking pictures. And he's like, well, how am I supposed to know what makes a good looking guy? I'm not gay. I'm like, well, dude, like it's not.
No.
You don't need like, well, that doesn't even make any sense. Like you can like recognize something. You don't have to like you don't have to like go fuck the guy to like recognize why he might be attractive to someone else.
Yeah.
Like you get like some people they're just so into their own like insecurities with things that they can't separate that. Like it's like they can't like, oh, like I could see why my friend would be attractive to a woman. He's a good guy. Like it doesn't make me gay or it doesn't make like, see, it goes back to that people are just very uncomfortable about themselves and like how they feel about certain things, and it really goes back to communication. A lot of people just do not know how to communicate how they're feeling about it, or someone comes with information, especially with the amount of information someone like you has, and it's just like it's like an overload, or like, why do you know that, or how do you know that? And so they don't understand it. You're giving them stuff that they've never heard in their community, so you're just like this person that just dropped a bomb that just like they don't know how to process that all the time because it's information they weren't taught. Like I was saying with the Uber driver from Somalia, he has 3 wives back at home, and it's not a big deal. It's not weird. But like you talk about that here in America, someone who thinks it's just man and woman get married, and it's just like information that they're not comfortable with. It's just like a lifestyle they're not familiar with, a culture they're not familiar with. So they tune it out because it's not normal to them.
Yeah. And I believe that's polygyny. So if I think I mentioned earlier that polygamy is an umbrella term for polygyny and polyandry, and that's polygyny. And polyandry is one woman with multiple men. So yeah, I mean it's a practice, and it's looked down upon on certain areas, but can be completely normal in that area where they're practicing it.
A lot of it is really like with the work you're doing, it's deprogramming people from all this stuff they were taught, all these belief systems that they have. It's just helping people understand themselves. Even they don't have to know a damn thing about sex, but they should, we should have an open forum where someone could sit here with the podcast with us and just talk, and just if they don't have to say anything, they could listen, they could just be comfortable here. It's not like this person knows this better, this person does. It's all about learning off each other, which I think is cool. And I think you're doing a lot of great work with.
In America, the westernized, the society that we live in, there's nudity everywhere. And it's in the media everywhere. It's in the products we sell. It's in the music we listen to. It's in the billboards we pass. Like, it's everywhere, but no one wants to acknowledge the fact that no one's talking about it, and that all this mental health issues or rape statistics or just everything that's just going wrong is because we're not talking about it. And so
what's funny about that is, like, when we were talking about nude beaches, the nude beach here in San Diego, Black's Beach, it's funny, like, that on that beach, people are actually more respectful. Because, like, it's a nude beach, so it's like people are, like, watching for that. They're watching for, like, make sure no one's on some weird shit. People are more respectful of space. They're more respectful of eye contact. And it's funny because it's a nude beach. You would think, like, oh, like, nudity is being highlighted. People talk about it less. Like you're saying with, like, a product where it shows, like, a girl in a bikini with, like, the strap down a little bit, it's all suggestive, like, that makes you think about it more. If she's just naked, you don't even think about it. But when you have it, it's just covering her vagina, and she's like turned this way, so you have to guess, like, that makes you think about it more. Like, if you're just at the nude beach and everyone's naked, no one thinks about it. That feeling just goes away. It's like a kid has to be taught that, like, he's naked. Like, what? There's no such thing.
There's no
clothes don't exist. We create clothes. There's no. It's a fabric that we put on for comfort, for warmth, whatever, but also you're not supposed to show this part. And so on top of everything else, confusion and understanding yourself, now we have this private part, and we don't talk about this, and you're supposed to do it this way. It's like, well, why am I supposed to do that way? No one ever gave me any guidance. And so, there's this really closed off space when it comes to sex and sexuality.
Especially with back to children, how young boys, they discover themselves much earlier than little girls, and they begin to immediately play with themselves and just discover their body and see what pleasurable feelings they can get by touching themselves. And it's not sexually in them that they understand what they're doing. They just know it feels good. And for little girls, unfortunately, and why I feel women have a difficulty expressing themselves in bed and just in general, is because we weren't taught to touch ourselves. We weren't taught that if we felt good, we should explore that sensation. We should explore that feeling. Instead, it was, don't touch your private area. And we grow up with that thinking, okay, well, men know how to please themselves. Like, it's clear that they can reach orgasm and quickly. How come it's so difficult for me? Why are women more complex and complicated? And it's not because we're complex or complicated. It's because since we were little, we were told that we shouldn't touch that area. We shouldn't explore ourselves. And so there's this huge disconnect between a woman and her body, and is a huge gap between male orgasm and female orgasm. However, there have been studies that show bisexual women and homosexual women have an equal orgasm rate compared to a heterosexual relationship. And even homosexual men, they have an equal, they're males, so they'll enjoy themselves regardless. But for women in particular, there isn't this huge gap between partners and orgasm, because they never had this standard to that they needed to follow. Like, there's the heterosexual relationship, so a woman knows that she has to, or she feels that she has to please her man and be sure that he ejaculates, and when he does, I guess sex is over. I guess I can't reach my orgasm. It's fine. Maybe next time. So for homosexual women, there's never been this standard. There's never been this inequality. It's just something they've had to explore on themselves and by themselves. And so they have a lesser orgasm gap. So that's interesting. I found that interesting. Because it does show that women aren't complicated. We're just we misunderstand ourselves and are misunderstood.
And your parts are different.
Yeah.
It's just what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Like the guy, it's external. It's just right there. It's super easy. The girl, it's like, it's intricate, you know? Like, it's not like, a girl can't just like jack off.
Yeah.
Like, it's you know, there's like tunnels.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
There's folds.
Yeah, there's like chambers,
it's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a completely different set of parts. And so, like, that's another thing, too. Like, educating guys and girls, yes, we're all human, but there is separate discussions there that has to be had. So a lot of times, they don't get the same discussion that maybe the other gender did.
Yeah.
And then depending on how their family, whether they were open with it. Because like you were saying with like a little boy like touching himself, I saw that once where there's like a 3-year-old and he just like had his hand in his pants and his mom like slapped his hand. And like, which is very you know, petty, but it's like, you know, that's a psychological, I don't do this. I'm not supposed to do this.
Oh,
it's the pullback. So now that's an area that I'm like, it's like a forbidden area.
Yeah.
Like, don't talk about this part. And so then, you know, just those little things, the slap on the hand, school saying it needs to be this way, putting on clothes, the phones, like there's all this weird psychological stuff going on. So then he's still this sexual being, but then there's all this like programming done to him or her, and they don't know how to express that.
Yeah.
So I think not even just this podcast episode. Yeah, it can, but like just bring it to light. Like, talk about it. Why not? I mean, if it's there, it's there. If you don't talk about it, that doesn't mean it's not there. Like you're saying too with like fetishes or thinking you're weird or think like you have it regardless. So like if you don't communicate it, you still have it. You know, it's still there. So like sometimes it is better to talk about it because then you realize, oh, I'm not so weird, or that question, it doesn't make me look stupid for having that question because everyone has that question. And like people think that like if they ask someone a question, it like they're somehow like inferior to that person because they're the one asking the question, so they don't ask the question because they feel like, well, why would that person know something I don't know?
Yeah.
So they don't talk about it. And then when you add it like a sexual discussion, it even heightens the fear of that. So then we're closed off to each other.
Yeah, and I want people to do their research too, like research articles that like do research behind the research, because there is some research that talk about, say, like the G spot and the A spot and the U spot, and everyone's coming up with all these spots onto women. And there are two sides where they're saying, yeah, it's there, it's definitely there, and there are other studies that are saying, no, there's no such thing as spots on women or males, because everyone has their own liking, their own what they feel works for them. And if they find something that works for them, just be sure not to stress yourself out or themselves out because that spot may not work the next time you have sex.
Yeah.
So just constantly experimenting and constantly talking about it and constantly checking in, you know, with yourself and with your partners is what's needed. And to read books, read studies, and to do just research. That's all you guys to do.
Yeah. just be open to information you might not already know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with communication too. And, you know, if a girl tells a guy, like, oh, like, I like it this way, or, like, do this, it's like sometimes he feels he should already know that.
Yeah.
So then he just gets offended.
And that's emasculating.
Yeah, so it's like, what do you mean I don't know that? Like, I do it my way, and this is how we do it. It's like, okay, well, maybe she doesn't like it that way. Or, like, it's like you're dealing with, like, maybe the last girlfriend did, but, like, she's a different person. So it's not just, like, your way is not always just, like, the way.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for people to see themselves as, like, not the winner in like every situation, you know, especially as guys are like, we're really competitive. So it's like the idea that like she has like a better idea of what I could be doing to please her better, or I'm not pleasing her enough. Like it's like an ego thing.
Yeah, it shouldn't
so
be that
then
way.
Again, we just go back to not talking about it. I'm just gonna, you know, it's just like you've cast that person out as like they can't, their word is just not something to listen to, you know. So that in sex is a very it can be a very spontaneous thing. It's a very like natural urge. So like if you're trying to communicate something with sex, some people see it as very like mechanical, and they don't, you know, so they just don't talk about it. Like guys are very rough with it, or they're just very like kind of like caveman like, you know, they don't want to understand, like maybe they could be a little more like suave, or maybe they could be like doing it a little bit differently, touching her in a different area. They don't want to see themselves as like they're doing something wrong, right? So it's just like they have their way and they don't talk about it. I mean, it goes with girls too, but I feel like guys are a little bit less on the communication. I feel like girls have us on that one for the most part.
Just being communicative.
Yeah.
Using all sorts of words.
Yeah. It's interesting though, just like the sexual relation between man and woman. It's just you look at the earth, it's like life and death, birth and death, night and day, fire, water. Like you can see all these parallels, man and woman. Like everything has like a half that like needs to like come together and make a whole. Like the universe is kind of built off that.
The balance.
The balance. Like sex is a huge part of that. And so I think when you're not open with it, with the discussion, you're closing yourself off to a good spiritual discussion, because sex is very spiritual too, which a lot of people don't really think of it that way. But I mean, you start going down the wrong rabbit hole, it can mess you up.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a lot of lacking research in same sex as well, and having compassionate sex with your same sex. And I mean, I would like to also do that as well, because I do love women too. So I want to explore that side of research and show people that you can have multiple lovers, as well as an orientation that can branch off to whoever it may be, whether you're in love with a transgender or you're in love with someone who's gender fluid. There are so many different words now and to describe people. And I also want to be careful with that too, because being human, I know you want to describe yourself and have this label to where you can say, well, I'm asexual or I'm gender fluid, but you're still human. And you could do whatever you choose to do. You don't have to be stuck in this box. And so when I do speak about polyamory, I don't mean it as this title that you must forever follow. You can full well go back to monogamous and be in a monogamous relationship again, and then go back to being polyamorous or whatever you want to do. It's something you just need to feel and follow your heart with. So it's important for me to just at least help and try to explain things. But I mean, do you guys have questions? Something that
studio crew?
Yeah, studio crew. That may interest you?
Yeah, part of like I want to mention about like being open with like different love styles, being open with sexuality. Like for me, I'm a straight guy, and so like the idea of sex with another guy is a huge turnoff. Like that just does not go. And sometimes like someone will mention, oh, like you don't know if you don't try kind of thing. But it's like part of being open with it is like I don't have to be everything, you know. Like we can have an open thing where that guy can be gay, this girl can be a lesbian, and I can be straight. I don't have to like sometimes we get, especially in 2018, we're like so inclusive that you feel like you have to accept everyone's like psyche, but it's like for me, I'm a straight guy. I'm not gay. I don't have a problem with a gay guy, but I know what I like. And so like for me, I can't relate to that. You know, I'm wired to be straight. I like girls. And so I don't relate to a guy that likes another guy. I don't see why he would. And it's not offensive to him. He probably doesn't see why I would like girls. Yeah. You know, so but it's one of those things sometimes like we're in such an inclusive society in 2018. It's so politically correct, try not to offend someone, that like sometimes too like people are very off put by like a masculine man. Like a guy with masculine tendencies. It's like, oh, he's like what's like toxic masculinity. Like I saw this article the other day where they wanted to like the James Bond movies, they wanted to tone them down because he's like offensive to women or something. It's like, no, he's like a masculine guy, women like him. And sometimes it's like for someone like James Bond, like guys get threatened by that. They get threatened by like a masculine guy that women just want to fuck. And so like there has to be, he's toxic, he's too masculine, he's not, you know. So I don't think there's a problem with masculinity or like having like natural male tendencies. Like as long as you're being open with people, I think it's cool. But like sometimes people take it to that extreme where it's like oh come on, like I had a girl once that I was trying to like, you know, hook up with, and she said the only way she would hook up with me is that if I did a threesome with her and another guy. I'm just like, well, that's just not me. She's like, well, come on, like you got to be open about it. It's like, no, that's not me. I don't have to like accept that into my world. You can have that in your world, but that's not my world. And so like it's like you're cute and everything, you're not that cute. I'm not fucking another guy just for you. Like,
you definitely you absolutely don't have to do anything you don't want to.
Yeah.
But if there's the curiosity and then there's that sort of a passion that you'd like to try, do it. Like, don't be afraid to do it because of societal and cultural standards of, ooh, you're gay then, or you're bisexual. Like, what are you doing? What I'm curious about, though, is I want to find studies more on people who are just heterosexual or just homosexual. Because if you take away sight and someone touches you, you don't know what they look like or who they are or what they are.
That's true.
But you know sensation, and sensation feels good. So I understand the whole procreation. Like, yes, there needs to be sex for procreation, but also what really drives us for heterosexuality. And that's a huge subject to, like, okay, breasts, that means you're supple, your hips are wide, you're meant to have children, procreation. So, but take procreation aside, and if sight's taken away and you're left to just be felt by someone else, you'll be turned on, right? So you take that blindfold off and you're like, oh shit, that's a man. Like, what happens within your psyche to the point where you're like, this is gross. This is a turn off. I don't no longer want to be touched by you, even though you made me feel amazing. I want to understand that side of it, and I want to see more research into that, because I would really, really like to know what makes someone their orientation. Because I consider myself pan, and at first it was bisexual because I seen like male, female, and now that there are transgender beings and just beings that don't even classify themselves as a category, I'm curious as to, well, why can't I love them too? What is it that's preventing me from loving them? So even though I haven't had a relationship with a transgender person or someone who considers themselves gender fluid, I'm allowing myself to experience that, because it's a being with a different exterior. And again, I'm not saying like, you need to be homosexual, you need to be open, you know, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I'm just really curious about that aspect, that if our sight was taken away, how can we decipher between what that human being is? And although they're making us feel great, and then, I mean, of course, if you hear a man, you're going to know. And so that'll immediately, but like, what if, like, what prevents connection? Other than procreation.
That's a really good point with the sight thing, because like if I'm getting a massage and I'm blindfolded and I don't know who, like obviously you can tell if it's a man or woman's hands, but just like it's a good feeling to get a massage. Like it doesn't really matter whether it's a guy giving me a massage or a girl. Like a professional massage is nice, but so like the second that you find out that it is a man, or like you see like these like drag shows where like the guy does a really good job of like looking like a girl, and if you think that's a girl, you're like, oh, she's pretty, and then takes the wig off. No, it's a man. Like what happened in my perception of that? But it's like, but it's interesting because like sexuality, like growing up, like, you know, some kids that are gay, they said that they always knew. Some kids they found out later. For me, like I've never even like thought about that. I just like I've always liked girls, so it's just like I never thought like, why do I think it's weird? Like there is a reason why I think that, but it's just there. Just like I've never even considered like a guy being attractive. I'm just straight, and it's just like it's interesting that someone else has a different wiring, and it's just like that's just what you are. And so like, and you don't even have to accept everything or agree with everything, but we should, I think, we should have a point in society where we should be able to have a gay person, a straight person, a Democrat, a Republican, different religions. We can all sit down in one room, have a beer, and just fucking talk.
Discover ourselves.
Yeah, you do not have to agree with anything that guy is doing. You can disagree with gay marriage. You can disagree with gay people, but you should be able to sit there and talk to someone.
Respect.
Like, it's just like, at the end of the day, we're all just living beings trying to eat food and get by and have a good life.
Have
like,
sex.
Yeah, exactly. Like, or not. It's like, but it's like we're trying to like live our lives, and so with some people it's like they aren't on that like commonality. They just got like a problem with everyone, or they don't understand anyone. They just can't talk to anyone. That's a real issue. Like you don't have to agree with anyone's life or their sexual practices, but if you can't like sit down and talk, like that's going to create problems.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah. Like and that's because we're talking a lot about being open sexually and polyamory. You can disagree with that. You could be like, that's just, you know, that's you wanting to sleep around, or like I want to marry one person, which is fine. You can have that belief, but like the whole like you can't talk to someone, going back to the communication, that's where we don't make any progress, because if you can't talk to someone, how are you going to find any common ground?
Or know anything.
Exactly.
And better understand your questions that you have, because I do get that, is that you do want to just sleep around. But the thing is, I have a commitment to people, while monogamous people have a commitment to monogamy. So there's that difference where you just want a certain relationship style, but yet you jump from person to person, whether it be 5-year relationship, 6-year relationship, 10-year relationship. My commitment's to people and not necessarily the love style, you know? So
that's interesting.
It's It's yeah.
Because it's like even with monogamous people, like you've had other relationships, you've dated other
Serial
people,
monogamy.
so it's like kind of the same thing, but you're choosing at this point in time, now I'm going to settle down or tie down or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, so we have those tendencies where everyone is kind of polyamorous because like, how many people realistically, they only kiss one girl, only date one girl, and they just marry that girl and they never looked at another woman any way whatsoever.
No
like
thoughts, no sexual thoughts.
Yeah, or like
no
a girl,
missions.
like a guy who thinks like he has like a hot wife or whatever, and he thinks that he's the only guy that she finds attractive, and he just can't like, why are you looking at that guy? Like, why are you talking to this guy? He's just like super like insecure, and there's a lot of guys like that. Like their wife's like on a leash because they can't, they don't know how to like
jealousy.
They're just jealous. So, yeah, like that guy might have something more than me, and just like he's not. It's like, man, she's a woman. She's gonna like find other dudes attractive. Like I wouldn't want to be with a girl that was that jealous that were like I couldn't even talk to.
It's unhealthy.
Girl.
It's very unhealthy. Jealousy will always be there, but if you're not speaking about it, or if you're doing it to the extent of you're controlling another being, incredibly unhealthy. And it definitely lies in the person, the individual that has the jealousy. They need to understand why they're jealous, where it's coming from, if it's the insecurity of the way that they look. And I mean, it takes two too. So I take that back, because it takes, if your partner's walking around and being dishonest and doing what they please and you're doing your best, jealousy can arise because you're not understanding why you're not being heard or seen or respected. So I suppose it does take two. But if there is that person who is just controlling, like, let me see your phone. Who are you texting? Why do you like her photos? How come he's doing this and this? Then that's where it gets unhealthy. And it definitely needs to be something, like, it needs to be looked inside the individual to be sure, like, why am I doing this? Why am I upset? And if your partner is being the person that evokes your jealousy, they should sit down and be like, okay, well, why am I doing certain things that makes her jealous or him jealous? So jealousy is dangerous.
It's a hard emotion, especially when you now you bring sex into it. I mean, that changes the ball game completely. And then every person has their own individual circumstance. I know for me personally, so like in my dating life, sometimes like if I'm interested in a girl who's considered like not attractive by like other people, she looks at me and like, oh well, like you could get any girl. Like the girl has to be the pretty one. Like why?
See, that's bad.
And it's bad because it's like it's this societal thing where like the girl has to be the feminine, wears makeup, the pretty one. So if you're like a male model, some girls are just like, oh, he's too good for me, or like you're too attractive. I'm like, I'm talking to you. I'm not even looking at it that way. Like, oh, like I could do better. Like, no, I like you. That's why we're talking. But we just can't be because our parents created different sets of combinations.
Yeah.
And so we just can't. You have to go with like your own level, or like what level? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I was at a bar once, and like I just look over. I'm like, hey, what's up? To this girl sitting next to me, and she just says, why are you talking to me?
Stop! Like, why?
Yeah.
Did you really? Excuse me?
I get that. I mean, I'm a mixed race person. I have green eyes. I mean, I get that aura sometimes. Like people just like they don't know how to like. They like why would you be talking to me?
Wow.
It's like I don't know. My parents had sex once. I existed. I'm here at a bar. I'm trying to like get by in life. Maybe date someone. Maybe hook up. Like I don't know. Like what do you mean? Why am I talking to you? But there's all that perception like what this person should be doing, or like their worth in life, or like I'm of a lower standard. Here's my people. It's just more of that social clique. Yeah, the hierarchy. The like you see like oh, that girl's out of my league. There's none of that. There's no league. There's no like level. It just you as a person trying to understand yourself.
Yeah.
And but I think that's funny how that comes into play, or like a girl will think like if she's with a really attractive guy, he could cheat. Like other girls will like him. He does have the potential to cheat. He does have the potential to do that. So they don't date the hot guy, because if they date the less hot guy, then they have less to worry about, and she can be the one on the pedestal, and she, you know what I mean? So it's like.
Yeah. See, and that brings it back to procreation. That's like the need to procreate. The best genes get into the best gene pool, but we're no longer chimps, you know. We have some sort of responsibility to now understand that respect. Like you just need to respect people, and if you want to have sex with other people, be honest about it so your monogamous partner can move on,
right? Or
you guys could work through it and make some sort of standards to follow. So hiding it and just sleeping around, or not telling your partner that you had accidental slip up or a sleep around, if you don't tell your partner, you're just causing more turmoil within the relationship. So yeah, just it needs to definitely be worked on, communication, and the fact that people need to be comfortable with themselves regardless of what they look like or how they carry themselves. Like, just be yourself and discover yourself. And hopefully with those classes I want to implement, it'll happen.
I think it will.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you're young and you have all this ahead of you and all these goals, and you have like a clear sense of what you want out of it, and it's needed. And I mean, I don't hear a lot of people at all talking about sex like this or this open. Even like people with like shows on TV about it, like there's still certain topics they don't go into because it's like it's on airways and they can't mention this, or like even there's always a part that they're holding back. And I think you do a really good job of letting everything just flow and just being open-minded to any discussion on it. So do you get people to, like, I know you said people ask you how to have better sex. You also get, like, they ask about, like, certain fetishes, and they ask about possibilities. Like, you probably get a lot of different questions with that, right? Or, like, they think they're weird and they're looking for you for some sort of, like, is this weird? Is this normal?
Yeah, I have gotten a few questions, and like I said, it's no matter how atypical it is, it's completely fine as long as you're not hurting someone and it's consensual. And like voyeurism, you know, if it's not illegal. But then again, that involves consent. You need to you're not obviously asking to watch someone have sex. So yes, if it's consent, and safety. So, but go do your thing. Like, whatever you want to do, use a vacuum. If you want to use the oven, you want to dress up like a porcupine, whatever, live your life. Yeah.
Do what you need to do.
Wave your freak flag and find your freak. Find that person that's going to accept you for who you are. And I've noticed that the deeper I get into the study, though, it becomes a little difficult to explain because I'm so used to the books that I've read and the studies that I've read. So for me to put certain information out there to where it can be learned from, I've noticed it's getting harder because I'm like, oh, you don't know that? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm so used to that. So I need continuous questions so I can be reminded that, like, yeah, this is very atypical. Like, I need to remember that people, they don't understand where I'm coming from. So
right.
I mean, I really enjoy this podcast because you are asking questions, and I'm able to at least put a little bit out there that I feel that is normal, so I don't put it out there because I feel like, oh, people already know.
Yeah, because you're, like you said, you're coming at it from a different place, a different set of knowledge, different experiences. So that's why good with the communication, asking questions, you got to know that every person you meet is going to like have some knowledge you don't have. They have something to teach you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we cast people out like, oh, what could that person teach me? Or I've already evaluated what I think they are. Like, what could I learn from them? But like, everyone's going to know something. And so a lot of people get uncomfortable with like someone else in the room might knowing something, like they might know something more than someone else in the room. So they get like weird about like, why do they have that information? Why are they curious about that information? Why does she want to study this? Like what like, it's never just like, oh, it's an interesting subject and you're doing a lot to help people. It's like why do you want to go into sexology? Like, that's not a real
What's your
job.
agenda?
What's the agenda? Hidden motive. It's just like they're not trying to learn from it, you know? Or it's like again, it's communication's key. And like I notice just growing up how just bad our generation is with communication. Even the phones and everything, just like making it even worse. It's a lost art. It definitely needs to come back with being able to talk to someone one-on-one.
And especially with people who withhold information about their relationship because they don't want a bad light shown on it. They want to look like a perfect couple, or that they have no relationship problems. And no, my marriage isn't sexless. We have sex all the time. That becomes an issue because then people are comparing their relationship to yours, or that person who's touting it. And then it becomes another terrible cycle. I keep using cycle, but cycle because there's this loop of oh my gosh, so if my relationship sucks, I can't portray my relationship as sucking because then I'm gonna look bad. I'll be the one that's inferior because they have a superior relationship, and how come I can't be them? So people begin to withhold all this information and aren't able to help each other out because they don't want to look bad. They don't want to look like they're in a rocky relationship. They want to look like everything's perfect. Like, and that's unhealthy because you're not helping yourself, and you could possibly be helping others if you did talk about it.
Respect where the other person's coming from, because you're not gonna know. Like, people think they know someone, but like you could spend 2 hours a day from birth to your age now with one person, but you don't know what they're doing with the other 22 hours. So, but if you spent 2 hours a day with one person, you'd be like, I know that person. Yeah, but how do you don't know the other 22 hours?
Yeah, not really.
You don't know what they're doing with other people, how other people perceive them, what experiences they had that you weren't there for, so you don't understand like why they do the things they do. You don't understand why they think the things they think. Mm-hmm. You don't understand certain quirks. You don't like, so people just don't understand somebody. But it's like, why would you? You're like a small part of that person's story. You're not going to fully understand somebody. So that's why communication is huge.
Yeah, and perception is insane, because if you don't communicate in a way that's sufficient enough for you to put you guys both on the same field of understanding, it's so difficult. Because I suppose you can have so much communication, but perception is what's going to form that understanding of what you're hearing from that other person. So yeah, there's so much practice we need to do.
So true. You want to end it there?
Yeah, we totally can.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks Channing for coming. This was a really good episode. I think it's going to turn out really good.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. I hope I was able to at least be slightly descriptive for everyone out there who's just learning stuff. But reach out to me, ask questions. I'll try my best to be as open and honest and raw, with everything, and use my library database from school, because that's kind of what I've been using to post things on my Instagram, is the studies.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
no problem.
it.
Thank you for coming.